We'd like to welcome each and every individual. We're doing the last of the for the German fairy tales on Carnegie's final nine principles. And so begin with praise and honest appreciation. Totally agree with that. Totally agree with that. It's fascinating. When I was 23 to 27, I worked for Preferred Mortgage Associates, Tony Davis. This guy, he was a Marine. Like he was a Marine and he he looked like Tony. Like, yeah, wouldn't want to go to battle against him. Like he was one tough dude. But it's weird because he said to me, this is before I really understood personalities. He said, Mark, you gotta, with people and leading people, it's like a sandwich, and you gotta lead with praise and then give the criticism and then finish with praise. That I didn't have the
Hmm.
capacity to say, so is that how they trained you in the Marines to do it too? Like, did you, in boot
Hmm.
camp?
Not
Is
boot
that how
camp.
they treated you in boot camp? Like, Tony, or, yeah, Tony Davis. He's like, Tony Davis, like, hey, like, is this how they train you in the Marines? I don't know. Not sure. Call attentions to people's mistakes indirectly. I would say my experience with a lot of people, if you do it indirectly, they just don't get. They do not get it. They just they don't get it. And it's like we were just talking about our son Jonathan, and he had a lot of impulsiveness, and 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 once he got angry. He was like 16 years old, 16 years old, and we were trying to deal with him on it. We were trying to go ahead and, hey, buddy, hey, like, and he got angry once, and he threw his Xbox across the room and missed his mom by about a foot.
Mm.
Um, I went ahead and did not respond indirectly. I mean, it was in his face. It took everything within my power not to go ahead and physically address that situation. Man, I'm like, buddy, you could have killed your mom. Like, and it, you know, and he and I got into it, and it was a pretty heated conversation. And and I don't know, a day or so later, I talked to him about it and said, "Hey," he's like, "Well, Dad, you got in my face." I'm like, "Really? Do you not understand the implication?" And he's not alone. I mean,
Yeah.
this is becoming more and more prominent. And then I don't know, a few weeks later, he did something stupid again. That time I used, sarcasm. He didn't like that either. I'm like, what do you want me to do? You don't want me to get in your face. You don't want me to go ahead and, use sarcasm. Like, so in my experience, when you talk, you'd be nice. Like I have a system, and I don't know how far we're going to go today, but I had a situation where there were 16 Christian women that were not nice to my wife. They were not kind to her. And I tried to be indirect with them, and I don't think they got it. I mean, I don't think they got it. And so, I would say we don't need to talk about it now, but like, what about when people don't get it to it indirectly? So my process is almost always I will go ahead and lead with amiable and be nice. And hopefully that works. Just be nice and kind. Just that. But it doesn't. It just almost never does, because goofballs are goofballs. And so then I'll go into the analytic, a little higher frequency, kind of explain to them the science behind, hey, this is not good. And that doesn't work. Then I'll go into my expressive, which is my weakest energy. Tom Coons, he could do this really good. Holy cow. He'd be harder than me, and people would be like, Tom, give it to me again. I'm like, hey, he's meaner than I am. I don't know why, but anyways, Tony's I think like that too. I think he can be meaner than I am, and he gets away with. I just don't. So, anyways, I try my best I can, kind of make it fun and light, but be serious and say, hey, if that doesn't work, then I just rip their heads off, like just driver it, just Navy SEAL, and it's just I don't know. So, talk about your own mistakes before criticizing others. Totally agree with that. Totally agree. Totally agree with that. Matter of fact, once I don't know if Tony knows this, but once I tracked all my mistakes all year. Every mistake I made, I tracked. Yeah, right. It's
You did that.
embarrassing.
You tracked them. You tracked your mistakes. God
And I had
bless.
Rosanna do it, and I had Rosanna and all the kids do it, and then I had Elise, who I was working with, and all the people. I'm like, this is the year Mark's tracking all of his mistakes, and you guys have a mistake, bring it forward. I don't even like to talk about it. It's so embarrassing. So many mistakes made. I mean, it's just, I mean, people say, well, what kind of mistakes were there? I said there were 3 out of the 7 that I was like, one, I was 93 seconds late for an appointment. Like, serious. I mean, yeah, I got a good excuse, but Navy SEALs, they don't have excuses. You'll never hear a Navy SEAL or a top Olympian, you'll never, ever hear them say, well, nobody's perfect. Never. It's like it's not in their brain to process this, because they know if you say, nobody's perfect, people will be less perfect. They won't, from my experience. And so with Navy SEALs, do I want my wife and my kids and my grandkids to feel safe? I don't, because it's not a safe world. It's not safe. It's not a safe. Churches, Christian, Baptist, it's not safe. They're not safe. I don't want them to feel safe. I want them to be strong, because when you're strong, then you are safe, because you're strong. So I'm trying to build a wife who's strong, and kids and grandkids who are strong, people around me who are strong, because when you're strong, you're safe, because you're strong. You just are.
Yeah. Sometimes you need to balance things out though. You're the strong one, and sometimes it's so this model works, but sometimes you need to be strong for everybody else. Like I could tell you, my girls are not all my girls are not some they're not always strong, but they're starting to get stronger. My oldest one especially, and they're all starting to get their own way. But I think when they're not strong, we're strong for them. I would never put up with anybody hurting my family like that goes against every rule.
Right.
No matter the rules, throw the rules out, because these don't apply. If someone's saying something not being nice to my wife or my family, I would be all over that. So yeah, there's
Yeah. And so my wife, though, she goes ahead and tamps me down. Like she tampers me down. Mark, it's okay. It's really not, honey. These 16 Christian women that you go to church with and you go to small group with and Bible study with and everything else, and the way that they treat you publicly, this is not right. It's okay. So what does she do? She tamps me down. And what do? I go ahead and allow her to do it. And maybe that's right to do. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Then I use a podcast to go ahead and have therapy and say, girls, this is dad. Like when my girls were not nice to other girls, you know what? They weren't kind to them. They're just mean, nasty buggers. Or when they were mean and nasty to one another. I mean, girls and women, they're nasty buggers. They just are. And so it's like, hey, anyways, yeah, don't get me going on it. And so I agree with talk about your own mistakes. Totally. I mean, totally. Ask questions instead of giving direct orders. I agree with that too. Um, you know, unless you're in a situation where direct orders are required, like get out of the street, you're going to get hit. No, that there are times in life where you got to do it. Let the other person save face. Yeah, I think that creates ego. I think that I would not say, yeah, no, I think that's actually contradictory to, like, let the other person save face. It's like, well, then you're allowing them not to own their own mistakes. Those are contradictory. It doesn't make any sense. But I know I'm not saying always. Like, this is the thing. People who are black and white, I'm just like, grow up, be an adult. Like, life is not black and white. There's a whole bunch of grays. It's like all kinds of shades of all different colors. And so, I'm not saying always, but the thing is, I think in today's society, everybody's saving face and nobody's learning from their own mistakes. They don't realize how serious things are. Number 27.
Just let me, if I could interject just for a minute. So it's the person who stands up against and says that they've made a mistake, though. I think, where we want to go with this, let the other person say face. I can give you an example. So we had a major project that we were bidding on, millions and millions of dollars. So, and I changed the direction of it. okay, against one of the other partners that was on the job. He wanted to go one way. So the marketing team went and made the changes that I wanted. And we ultimately, because of that, we won. But I basically, we were all a team, and so we were going down the wrong path with the other partner, and we made a change. He got so crappy with the marketing team because they made the change, my changes. I said, "Hang on, I made the change." So you're gonna so saving face, even though they agreed and they made the changes, it's about bringing them back to who really made the impact, who caused that to happen. So I think some of this you have to, on the surface, these may not be ideal. The word, if you just look at the words, you got to look at where you drill down on them.
And I've got to head out, but I'm going to say these and then I'll keep going.
Okay.
And so then we can talk about any one of them. And so number 27 is praise the slightest improvement and every improvement. I agree for that, for toddlers, for children, for young children. I agree totally. Like, oh my grace, like you never hear, somebody say to a toddler, "Oh, you fell down, you'll never walk again. You're a loser." You never do that. But as adults, we don't praise people enough. But if we praise people too much, then they become addicted to praise. And I think a lot of times we as parents, that's what we do. And the kids have to have praise, and the real world is not going to praise them like mom and dad do. And so number 28, give the other person a fine reputation to live up to. Churches do that great. It's really a seductive move. It's wonderful. Like, you're an amazing person when you're really not. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I'm just saying that there's a downside to all of this that it doesn't seem like anybody talks to. And then use encouragement, make the fault seem easy to correct. If that's the truth, the Bible says the truth will set you free. What that means is it means that if we're believing a lie, we're enslaved. And I think there's a lot of people enslaved. And so if it's an easy mistake, like telling the truth to me is pretty simple. Just be honest and tell the truth. Now, the amiable personality, they have a hard time telling the truth. I mean, even 42 years of my marriage, my wife still has a hard time telling the truth. She's like, she'll say something she'll say nice to these 16 women. She'll say, all this nice stuff. And I'm like, that's not the truth, honey. She's like, yeah, but it's nice. And it's like, yeah, but is it kind? Like they're going to continue. They have a reputation in the community and nobody tells them the truth. And so, make the other person happy about doing the thing you suggest. I'm not saying I disagree with that. I'm just saying that the real world, like, they're going to have a job or they're going to own a company. Like, Roseanne and I went to a marriage seminar. It was funny. It was really interesting. And the husband did most of the speaking, but the wife did a little bit. And she went ahead and she said, women have it really good and really easy. Men don't. That captured everybody in the audience. And it's like, yeah, women have a lot of options in life. Men have too. You either work or go to prison. I'm like, that's interesting. And so people misunderstand me, like Tom. Again, he was just he's a genius. He's just brilliant. And so he would go ahead, like, he helped raise $100 million for Easter Seals. And he went ahead and said, president of Easter Seals, the president said, hey, what can I do, to help you next year in your business? And after $100 million, you'd think, yeah, you should do something. And Tom said, well, you can help me exploit your children more. And then he always paused for like 13 seconds. And then he'd say, and the president would be like, what? And then Tom would say, well, what I mean by that is, so Tom would say, like Easter Seals to raise $100 million, like, it's like Tom would get up there, like they would put like one of their children up there that gives a testimony.
And then Tom would get up there. How's he supposed to compete against a child that has a heart wrenching testimony? And so, so it's like, so they exploit their children, but it's for a good cause. Like it's helping raise money to help other children do things too. And so I saw this with Tom and I asked him once about it. And Jim Bontrager, he said something really cool. He said, God offends the mind to reveal the heart. So Tom would say something inflammatory, really tick people off, or really like grab their attention. And then he'd say, what I mean by that, and then he would explain the meaning of it. And so I don't do so good about that. I just tick people off. And so like on the German fairy tale, like if you don't remember, maybe this is the first one you've been through. Like my grandson Trevor, who's 12, when he was like 3 years old, I wrote, and his older brother was 5 years old. So like American fairy tales, everybody lives happily ever after. They don't, like American kids, it's like, yeah, no matter how stupid the mistake is, everybody's happy. Well, Tony and I know that's not the truth. That's not the truth at all. Like, it's just not the truth. You don't live happily ever after, no matter what choices you make. And so German fairy tales are the fairy tales like Peter and the Wolf, like somebody always dies. Like somebody's always dying or being eaten. And so German fairy tales are taught to teach kids, not to make kids feel good about, like in Ford versus Ferrari, when he says, not everybody gets out of the car. And so not everybody makes it out of the car. And so there's continued tension that I have because I can see the future. Like Tony had said, I think it was last week, he said, you see patterns, Mark. And so like these patterns, it's like, if we could teach people to see patterns, like, like, so my heart breaks. It's like, it just breaks there. It's always because I can see the future. It's not that hard to see. So, but most people, I think, don't want to see the future. They don't. I saw Jonathan's pattern from a little boy, and I worked my tail off to try to break that pattern. And so I don't know why. I don't know why people, and these are some really smart people and some good Christians and everything else. And it's like, I just don't get it. Tony, any thoughts on those last 4 or 5 questions or additional thoughts on that?
No, the only thing I'd say overall is that, look at, I view this as there's differences in the workplace than there is in the family. So, no one will ever hurt our families, and that's number one. Our families come first. And sometimes sometimes we treat people we work with better than we do our families.
That's
And I think we need to change that around sometimes in our life, and maybe as, I'm retired now 9 years, I realize that more than ever. But I think overall, I think there's a nice mix between the American side of this and the German side of this. Not everything is smooth, and it's not always smooth. Workplace is not always smooth. And when you're dealing with all kinds of people who have different personalities, the chart that you always have there, is spot on in terms of how we should deal with people. And I wish a lot more people knew that as they were going into the workplace, so they could figure out what someone is and how I need to deal with them. things would be, things would be better for everybody if they could see that pattern and they understood it. So
Rosanna, questions or thoughts you have?
I think it's important to remember if the same mistake is being made over and over again, that, it's not, the people, yeah, you got to consider the people, but you got to point it out to them, and it may have to be harsh. As I go in retrospect about the ladies, I'm like, yeah, maybe I should share with them what other people are thinking about them, because I think they're putting a bad testimony in the outside the community, and that's not, I don't think, what they want to do, but that's what's happening. So,
yeah.
But you probably won't do that, Rosanna.
Maybe not to the group, but I might find a couple individuals that will listen.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll pass it to the group, but maybe they won't. I don't know.
Though, if the ladies have the ego that I think I hear them that they have, it won't matter what you tell them. That makes sense.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I don't know.
People train other people around. Like I don't know, a couple of years ago, it was 2 years ago, I was in our living room, and after Sunday, all the local kids and the grandkids would come over to eat. And I said to my two of my sons-in-laws, I'm like, you guys do understand that you're both training me to treat you a certain way. And one of them was a little poosty with me, a little sassy with me. It's like, well, do you think you're training us? I said, well, obviously not as good as you're training me. And so it's like people train, and so they're just going to brush it off. They're going to just go ahead and say, well, so I think your strategy, Rosanna, to a couple people, I think your strategy is good. With the new Live GPS AI stuff, you could give, a couple of those ladies, like this URL link for the podcast, and introduce them. Like, I think what Tony is saying, I think they would love what Tony's saying, because that's pretty much the church today. You just go ahead and how to win friends and influence people. That's the Bible for the American church today. You just tell everybody what they want to hear, and you're nice and all this kind of stuff. And I'm not criticizing it. I think it's beneficial, but there's another side of that I don't think is being taught. And I think that's why we have so much weakness in the American church. It's why I think we have so much weakness in America. Like, you have to have safe places in college where you can't go ahead. You can't go ahead and say something that is a difference of perspective that comes from Tony and I think we would both agree on this. It comes from the misapplication of Dale Carnegie and what he's saying. It's taking it too far, and it's not saying there is a deep, dark side to that type of thinking, and you take that too far, and you're going to end up with a whole society that's weak, and they can't listen to anybody else's perspective. Katrina, on the link for this particular podcast, the theory of stupidity by Bonhoeffer, who was in World War II. He's a pastor in Germany, and I'm telling you, that is an amazing, and it's a sobering thought, where he says, Bonhoeffer said he was killed by Hitler, I don't know, a few weeks before they were liberated. And so he said that you're more likely to be stupid when you're in a group of people than when you're alone. And so people get together and they go ahead and it's like they tell each other how smart they are, how kind they are, how spiritual they are, how everything they are. And nobody's really challenging. People like me, you put them out of the group. You just push me out of the group because you don't want somebody like me in a group, because I'm going to see stuff, and unless my wife tamps it down, like if she tamps it down, I'll probably go ahead and just say, okay, I'm not going to share what I see. And it continues to get worse and worse and worse and worse until it really hurts somebody big time. Anything else, Rosanna, you got?
Nope.
Katrina, you've been very attentive. I am dying to hear what you're thinking.
Well, so basically my only questions are just you mentioned about adding a link to this one and also the last one, but I'm not sure like what links.
Yeah, we can
were
go over that. We can go over that. So that'll be fine to do that. Do you have any thoughts about what we've been sharing? Like you're Amish, and so the Amish, I think they're masters at this kind of stuff. Nice and kind, and and all of that kind of stuff. Do you have any thoughts or anything, perspectives on anything we've shared?
I mean, I've taken the Dale Carnegie classes already, so like I like all of his principles. But I can also like the things you shared. I can see where you're coming from. But I don't know, otherwise I don't really know like
That's good perspective. There's always two sides to the equation, right? Isn't there? There's always another way to look at things. So when did you take the Carnegie? When did you take the Carnegie stuff?
about 3 years ago.
Is there a reason why? Go ahead, Mark.
Go ahead.
Is there a reason why you took them? Was that your decision? Was that your decision, or was that somebody else's?
It was my dad asked me if I want to take it because he was the plant manager at where I was working, and I was the floor supervisor. So he got like a bunch of us managers to join the class. He asked us if we'd like to, and so everybody that wanted to went ahead and did it.
Good. Okay. Did it help you as being the line manager?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
Especially like the like to show appreciation more. Like I learned to show appreciation more, and also like the first two, don't criticize, condemn, or complain, and the begin in a friendly way. Like those three were probably the ones that helped me the most.
Yeah.
That changed.
Yep. You influence a lot of people when you begin in a friendly way. Kick off the morning the right way, changes everybody's day. So it's great. Good for you.
So I'm curious, Tony.
Yeah.
Like, what about when you apply these principles and it doesn't seem to change people's behavior? Then what?
Some people you'll never change because they have. You mentioned ego earlier, and I've dealt with some of the worst people in the world, in some crazy countries all around. So, and some people you're not going to change. So you end up you walk away, especially in a business setting. Business is different than in a family setting, but in a business setting, there are people that you don't want to do business with, and there are people that that you can negotiate and talk to and try to get them to your way of thinking, but that doesn't work sometimes. And so you just don't buy the business, or you leave the business. But most of these principles apply in a business setting, but there's some people who have bigger egos than anybody else could ever want or think about. And I wouldn't deal with them. So, I mean, I walked away from many, many deals because there were issues there that people wanted to go ahead and do. But it was the drive. If you're going to keep the company, the president of the company, because of his ego, I would say I'm not going to follow through. I would not buy the company. So we made many changes because of the president and his businesses. So people get big egos, and sometimes you don't need to deal with those people if you don't want to.
What if they're family members?
Family's a little harder, man. Family's a little harder. I guess as I've gotten older, So when I was younger, I would probably do some of the things you may have said or done, and Mark, in your situations and stuff. But I was all over my kids when I was younger too, and that was probably not, but I didn't see the issues that Anthony had. Like, I didn't see the challenges that he was going through, and sometimes I feel I wasn't a great parent for him. Um, and the same as my girls. But now, I mean, you know, I don't know if as we get older, and you're what, 20, 21 years of age or so? Is that what you are? And
I'm
Nora's
20.
20, you're 20, Nora's 28 or 27 or something. So you got young people here that, as you know, there's what's called a legacy letter that, you know, and you write the legacy letter to your kids before you pass away, and you give it to them and you talk about it, because there are things that you can say, like, if you're gonna when a lot of people pass away, they leave a letter for the family. Some don't leave anything, but they leave a letter for the family. As we get older, as we get our will and everything set up, and we write letters. And I have letters to my wife. I have letters to my kids, and I haven't given them to them yet, because and I may. But the thought of it is, you share those thoughts ahead of time so people can know what's in your heart. And there's some things that I admit that I wasn't always the best on. And I was probably a little too hard with my kids sometimes. Um, and so you say it earlier and then later. Because when you're here, you could talk about those things. When you're not here, you can't, obviously. So anyway, just something to think about. There's differences when you're young and differences when you're old. And we have to just we follow a path in life, and we just sometimes the path gets a little more sentimental and softer as you get older. Sometimes it doesn't.
Oh, it's definitely, that there's no question that I want to get softer. Like, that's my heart. I want to be a grandpa. I want to
Yeah.
just have
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
I just want to praise people. I just want to see the good, and I can see the good in anybody. I mean, it's not hard to see the good.
Yeah.
From my perspective, it's like they're geniuses. They're creating God's image. They're amazing individuals. But it's like, well, who's going to go ahead and show them the things that, you can have all the good, and all it takes is one poor choice.
That's
Like,
right.
one
Yeah.
poor choice, it's done for you or somebody else. And so the future sessions that we're talking about, and they're going to be interesting. We're still kind of working on those, and what does that all mean, and how does that all work, and is it going to be for, like, I think that the combination between Tony and I is a very, very powerful combination, um, because it's very different. Like, his approach to things is very, very different than mine. I mean, it's almost 180-degree different, but in a way, it's both the same. The heart's the same. And Tony,
Mm.
he's one of the few. Most people cannot see my heart; they just can't. And it is what it is. But Tony somehow can see my heart, and it's like, and so I think that there's some tremendous, and we also come from very different backgrounds. Like, Tony went with a really big worldwide company. I have so much, very similar to Tom Coons, so much respect for Tony. I could never handle the politics. I'm just way too direct with people. I'd have been gone the first week probably. And so that takes a certain skill set to be able to do that I don't have. I think, Tom always said, I admired him for running the largest real estate franchise in the world. He said, I admire you, Mark, because what you did, he said, was so much greater than me. And I don't think that at all. It's very different, but both great in their own, like the entrepreneurialism, the small business owner. how do you survive as a small business owner? It is not easy. So it takes different skill sets. And I think those skill sets combined, I think that there's a lot of ways of thinking that Tony has that would help the small to mid-sized company. And I think that there's some things like Peter Miles, who's the past board member of BMW, past president of Rolls-Royce. He's like, Mark, what your company has synergy and what Life Masteries has. He said, you guys are years ahead of the Fortune 100 companies, the executives. He said, none of them would understand what you're doing. And it's like, and so I think that the combination between Tony's experience, his way of thinking, my way of thinking, I think we could bring a lot of value to big and small companies, a lot of value. And I think that that value could go ahead and, raise a lot of money and a lot of awareness for the things that are on Tony's heart and the things on my heart too. So share this with others, the whole series or the one podcast, share it with others. And always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody.